So basically where they all converge is that you've got a damaged object over the area about a week before. You have a strong ammonia odor at multiple scenes. You have a firefighter and military activity on January 20th. You have the 3-woman sighting, and then you have these later very tightly controlled hospital and base movements that local people were observing. So now there's a couple of areas that you don't really get total convergence of evidence. Was there a shooting of beings in the woods? Maybe yes, maybe no, but maybe yes. The whole full document trail for all of these facility transfers, I don't think that we really have it proven to a degree that would be satisfying in a court of law. But there's a lot of witness claims about this. The existence and maybe where the whereabouts of any kind of a video that may have been taken, the extent of direct U.S. custodial role in this. So really what it does all kind of point to is that you've got this very intensive multi-agency, probably internationally coordinated recovery operation with living and maybe dead non-human entities that certain witnesses have claimed. So, in fact, there's a bit more. The late Bob Wood, who he also actually in one of his one book that I know he authored, which I published at the time, called Alien Viruses, he talked about the Varginha case in there. And there is talk about people dying shortly after contact with the captured being. And actually there were unexplained zoo animal death in Varginha as well. There was some kind of caustic toxin that was found in some of the animals of the zoo. There's a nearby zoo there. And then there were claims, I think this is in Bob's book, of underground laboratory work being done, like secret laboratory work being done, and military activity in Campinas all throughout the spring of 1996. And I think it was in Bob's book that he talked about metal fragments being analyzed at, it might have been Tim Good or Bob Wood, I can't remember, at a Brazilian aerospace research center somewhere in Sao Paulo, or maybe not Sao Paulo, somewhere in that area. Anyway, it's interesting. So James Fox's main claim is that all of the witnesses told him that Americans were involved in this. Maybe he's got a connection to a video, which has been discussed as a rumor for almost 30 years now. So I think, I'm inclined to think that, well, I think the American involvement is probably got to be true. It would fit a very well-described pattern in which the U.S. leads or is asked to lead, actually, recoveries of UFO craft under these very quiet bilateral agreements, maybe with Five Eyes partners, but sometimes beyond that. You see this a lot. I went through my collection of Leonard Stringfield's status reports. It's one of the best sources for this type of information you can find anywhere. And I now have that whole thing digitally, which thank God, because it is so much easier to search for things with a digital copy of this. So just to recap, Leonard Stringfield is one of the true OG UFO researchers. He, more than anyone back then or today, was really responsible for opening up the whole idea of UFO retrievals and recoveries. He interviewed a large number of individuals from the late 70s through the early 90s when he finally passed away, from, pilots and medics and morticians and security people and their spouses as well, about recoveries and bodies and all of that. So when you go through Stringfield's accounts, they're not all of the same level of detail. It's uneven in quality, I guess you could say, but they are incredibly consistent in the kinds of things that they describe. And when I'm hearing what James Fox is describing here, I just keep thinking Stringfield actually has described this kind of thing quite a bit. And by the way, I'll get into Stringfield, but I just am thinking, like, people will ask, well, why does the United States have to be involved in all of these things? Why can't other countries just take control? Why do the Brazilians have to hand this over to the U.S.? Well, I think, there's a lot of reasons. A, the U.S. is, in the 1990s especially, but throughout for many, many years, the dominant military intelligence power on the planet, especially in 1996. U.S. was basically standing alone at the top of the heap. But also the U.S. really had, so you could say U.S. could apply all kinds of diplomatic and national security pressure on any country it wanted to, which in many cases the U.S. was responsible for putting those leaders in power to begin with, countless times. So it wouldn't really be surprising. But once you have a system in place, I mean, the U.S. is the logical destination for these things. The U.S. had the deepest bench, you could say, in all like classified aerospace laboratories and test ranges and all these programs that would exist to exploit this type of technology. So if a partner nation like Brazil needed to deal with this, if they wanted answers fast on what this was, or if they wanted the matter contained, there was a lot of incentives that would point to a handoff to the United States. And then you had all of this legal and diplomatic support for this, all of these agreements that I have no doubt exist. And then like just the capability to like airlift or to transport something rapidly and covertly and just get it the hell out of wherever it is. The U.S., I think, would probably have been the best, have the best ability to do this with a minimal footprint that would be noticed by people. So I think, all of that kind of fits. And when I went through Stringfield's status reports, and there were a couple of interesting things that came out to me. So one, in the early 80s, Stringfield was telling readers that his insiders described a standing high-level framework for sharing UFO intelligence and for coordinating crash recoveries across borders. So he was talking about this. He did a status report from June 1982. It was a long time ago. So is there a totally human group that has been doing this for a long period of time? Or do they make sure that they have their own human crew doing work for them because maybe that's a useful thing? I mean, if you're going to work on the planet, on Earth, and if you're not from Earth and you need people to do things, maybe you would hire or raise or grow your own humans. Actually, why wouldn't you? So when people talk about, I saw human beings on this craft, it doesn't have to mean that it's a human from our human civilization. Not at all. Like I think we need to be thinking a little bit more creatively here, because it would strike me as very realistic. If you've got a long-term project on Earth and you yourself are not human, but you need to get stuff done on the planet's surface, you're going to want your own group of human beings, and you'll train them and you'll give them whatever implants and whatever you need, and they'll just do the job for you. So I don't really see, like I used to in the past, be more confused by these reports of human-looking beings, but really doesn't strike me as much of an obstacle these days. So as far as like their attitude, when I look at the various behaviors that they indicate over in the 1970s and 80s, because that's where my head has been with this volume, it's very consistent, and it really carries through from the earlier volume, and it carries through in what will be the third volume as well. They are very confident. They are cautious, but they are confident as hell. The way that they operate, the way that they go about their business, it strikes me as exceptional levels of confidence. Like they know there's nothing we can do. They have got this under their control. They've got a long-term presence. They are well adapted to our planet. This is not some transient little, we're here for a little while, then we're taking off. Doesn't seem like that to me. They do not seem threatened by our militaries, but they are careful to avoid direct confrontation. That has to be said. But they are not afraid of us, I don't think at all. They are definitely, I am convinced of this, interested in military strategic assets, without a doubt. You get persistent approaches to like carriers and destroyers, nuclear submarines. They are not afraid of that technology. So I think they are very interested in our capacity for war. I think they would be very interested in our nuclear weapons in the oceans as well as on land. We've already known about that. So they're interested in that. They are aware that we perceive them as well. All of these things, like the fact that there are probably human-like beings in the rare sightings of occupants, the management of their visibility, the selective electromagnetic suppression. To me, all of this suggests an effort to control how they are perceived. They don't want us to document them when they don't want us to do that. Maybe they don't want to shock us. Maybe they don't want to confuse us, or maybe they do want to confuse us, but they are aware of how we are perceiving them, and they take steps to manage that however they want to do that. And when I think of like, are they good guys or bad guys? I would say I have not seen like obvious evidence of hostility in the cases that I'm looking at. Even in the military confrontation cases, I can't really convince myself that there's a hostility there, but I'm not saying that that means that they are benign. I don't think they're bent on destruction of us, but they have an ability to shut down whatever systems they want. They have an ability to manipulate our perception however they desire. They make it clear we are not in control of the encounter. They are in control. They might be benign, but I don't really know that they're benign. I do believe that they are interested in some kind of long-term monitoring, or long-term by our standards. There's enough of these cases spread out over time that makes me think they are continuously sampling like our oceans, our atmosphere, definitely just human activity. I think that they are doing that. I think their presence seems to I think they're doing some kind of counterintelligence or managing our awareness to the best of their ability. We have underwater systems to detect things. All these underground sonar arrays, for example. We've got our nuclear submarine fleets. I think like they're aware of all of this. There's no question. And they are concerned about managing our awareness of them. I suspect that our planet is interesting for some of its resources. I've come to feel like they use the oceans as almost like a highway, as well as a cover for any kind of permanent or semi-permanent bases. I suspect that they have those down there. And by the way, another interesting aspect to this is they're not just always in the oceans. There's a number of really fascinating cases where they are well inland in these tiny little lakes and reservoirs. I mean, sometimes they're in larger lakes like the Great Lakes, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Yes, but a lot of these sightings, like there are craft that are in these small little reservoirs, like in the state of Kansas, in the middle of the country, or in some other small out of the way place. It makes me wonder, what are they doing there? But it's enough of a recurring pattern as well. There is an inland operation that, like, clearly they would not be able to have a permanent base. I can't imagine in a little reservoir that's like 1 mile in diameter. It's like you're going to be caught. You're going to be found out. So, but they've been in these places. They'll go in for a brief period of time and then they'll take off. So there's enough of a pattern there that it's got to be an actual protocol. It's an actual thing. Are they doing environmental sampling there? I can often think yes. Or is it simply that they needed a place temporarily to just park their vehicle and do some work without flying around somewhere? And they're thinking, okay, this little reservoir will work. And they're here for a little while, just a quick little stopover. It could be something like that. So I think that they're interested in checking us out. They're interested in testing our technology. I've wondered if they are interested in testing our psychological responses to them, although I'm not getting as much evidence from that. It's hard to find the evidence for that.